So of course you'll have guessed by now that the fourth most popular brand and the subject of this week's In Focus series is luxury giant Audemars Piguet. For better or worse, Audemars Piguet is predominantly responsible for the luxury watch landscape as it stands today, the paradigm-shifting 1972 Royal Oak starting a chain reaction that recovered the entire industry from obsolescence. Follow along as we delve into some of the unknown parts of Audemars Piguet's stories, both here and in the articles we're posting over at watchfinder.com. You can catch us over on Instagram too. Links in the description. So, Audemars Piguet. You probably know a lot about it already, but here's some stuff you didn't. Looking to buy, sell, or exchange a premium watch? Visit Watchfinder, the pre-owned watch specialist. You're probably bored of me asking you to subscribe, so for now I'll just say thank you for watching. I don't think you'll be surprised that the first fact we're delving into here has something to do with Audemars Piguet's flagship, the Royal Oak. Talking about Audemars Piguet without mentioning the Royal Oak would be like Simon without Garfunkel or Bert without Ernie. Like it or not, the Royal Oak is an exceptional piece of watchmaking history without which we'd all be wearing Apple Watches instead. What cemented its status into legend was its combination of looks, price, and material. First off, it looked like nothing else that had ever gone before. If Audemars Piguet, and indeed much of the watchmaking scene, were well established with the mantra of form follows function, the Royal Oak did exactly the opposite. It looked like it did because, well, why not? And the price? Ouch. At a whopping 10 times the cost of a Rolex Submariner, you could be forgiven for thinking that it was at least going to be in gold to make up some of that cost. Nope, it was made of plain old steel. And this wasn't some cost-cutting measure, it was a conscious decision. Steel was in and gold, Audemars Piguet's preferred material, was out. But despite that, the first Royal Oaks weren't actually made in steel at all. They were fashioned from white gold instead. The hugely complicated case and bracelet components just weren't something Audemars Piguet was equipped to make at such short notice, and so the prototypes were manufactured in gold instead, being softer and easier to machine. In fact, the added setup costs to equip the brand to machine the steel version actually caused it to have a higher production expense than gold for Audemars Piguet, materials included, an expense that, as we well know, was easily recouped. The Royal Oak may be the most famous watch that Audemars Piguet makes, but that's only when you consider the watches you know about. There are a whole horde of pieces Audemars Piguet is responsible for that you'd otherwise have no idea about. Enter Audemars Piguet employees Dominique Renaud and Giulio Papi, two watchmakers with a dream of building grand complications. To put you in the mindset of what these two did next, have you ever commented on someone's performance only to be faced by the retort, well, if you think you can do better, why don't you do it yourself? Well, in 1986, that's exactly what Dominique and Giulio did, circumventing the traditional career path to master watchmaker by establishing a master watchmaking firm of their very own, Renaud et Papi. Let me set the scene here, because these two did this at the point the Swiss watchmaking industry was on its knees. It's like investing in radio on the day MTV was launched. Or at least, it would have been, had a certain watchmaker called IWC not been trying to spark something of a rebirth. The man in charge, Gunther Blumlein, the legend who revived not only IWC but Jaeger LeCoultre and A. Lange & Söhne too, set Dominique and Giulio a challenge. Build a minute repeater to fit Kurt Klaus's legendary Perpetual calendar and a Valjoux 7750 chronograph. Challenge not only accepted, but knocked out of the park. Unfortunately, critical acclaim wasn't paying the bills, and so it was back to Audemars Piguet for Dominique and Giulio, not for employment, but with a business proposition. They agreed to sell a majority share to Audemars Piguet on the condition the pair could continue making watches for third parties, and so it was agreed. Since then, under the watchful eye of Audemars Piguet, the dynamic duo has not only launched brands like Richard Mille and assisted even the mighty Erlangen-Zoner, but also fostered the careers of greats like the Groenfeld brothers and Stephen Forsey. All those watches that could have worn an Audemars Piguet badge instead. It's often told that Audemars Piguet relied on the Royal Oak to survive the industrial downturn, but I don't think it's ever fully been established just how much of a pickle the watchmaker was in and how much it bet on the Royal Oak's success. Then managing director for Audemars Piguet, Georges Gaulet, found himself the day before the 1971 Basel Fair in a bit of a bind. The company was failing and he needed an answer. A 4 p.m. phone call to designer Gerald Genter would turn out not only to be the best thing he ever did, but a corporate gamble to rival the likes of New Coke. To set the scene a little better, Audemars Piguet in 1971 manufactured 5,000 watches total. Not per model, the whole lot. By comparison, the brand today makes some 10 times that. Such small numbers were why the business was failing, and the business was failing because no one was buying the watches they did make. That 4 p.m. phone call was beyond desperate. Georges Gaulet needed a groundbreaking watch that would sell at an incredible price, and he needed it first thing the next morning. He needed the Royal Oak. If this Royal Oak, or rather Safari as it was originally titled, were to save the company, it would have to do so in a big way. The risk couldn't be taken in a mitigated fashion, perhaps trialing a small batch and then scaling up. It was time to go big or go home. The investment in machinery needed to make the complex steel case and bracelet alone meant the numbers only worked if total production went up by a whopping 50% just in Royal Oaks. Georges Gaulet bet the business on red. By 1975, 3 years after the launch of the Royal Oak, things were looking shaky. The first batch of 2,000 had only just been sold. The business was still very much on a knife edge, and so, ignoring every principle of the gambler's fallacy, the choice was made to double down and make another 2,500. This, thankfully, is when the popularity of the watch started to emerge, and by the mid-80s, production had risen to well over 10,000 pieces a year. I don't know if Georges Gaulet was a gambling man, but on the eve of the 1971 Basel Fair, he made the biggest gamble of his life, and somehow it paid off. All thanks to the midnight scribblings of one man, Gerald Genter. You know the drill. If you enjoyed this, you'll enjoy the articles we'll be posting over on watchfinder.com. Please do check them out via the link in the description. It'll really help us. We'll have more Audemars Piguet video content coming soon, so make sure you're subscribed for that as well. And why not tell us you enjoyed it with a like and a comment? We appreciate every single one. Discover more exceptional watches at Watchfinder. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please do consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. If there are any watches you'd like to see featured, please let us know in the comments below.